Hey,
Hello,
Chris, what's
Tim.
going on? Yeah, yeah. Hey, man, how are you?
Living the dream as I do every Monday morning.
Yeah, I think that's important to understand that Mondays are all about dreams, right?
That's
It's
You can't dream on Monday, and Friday is going to be a hell of a day for you.
That's right, and not to mention, how things may look on Wednesday. You got to get the vision in line on Mondays, and here we are. We're talking about starting a podcast. Let's start by let me ask you, what do you do, and what does Data Axle do? What do you do for Data Axle? What do you do for their customers?
Well, for Data Axle, I've been in automotive marketing data analytics for near 20 plus years at this point. And about 6 months ago, I joined Data Axle to head up their automotive practice. Really trying to concentrate on helping dealers and dealer groups and OEMs kind of tackle the data, the prospecting side of the business, how to do marketing a little better, a little smarter, how to begin to think a couple of steps ahead of how we've been doing marketing for the last 15 or so years. So that has been my primary focus on trying to stand up a little bit more of a progressive data data driven solution, trying to help dealers really get to market a little faster, a little cheaper, a little more productively.
Well,
It's been a good run so far.
good. I mean, and you and I've been talking um, uh, outside of a recorded conversation like this for some time. And I think no doubt about it, similarly, here at Brain Trust Partners, we've got clients, a number of them in the automotive world. I would say dealer groups, mostly those that have 10 stores or more. Some of them have 20 stores, some of them have 60 stores, some of them have more than that. OEMs, the adjacent businesses, right? I mean, because we have insurance, we have financial services, we have body work, we have aftermarket parts and services. We've got, the automotive industry is not as linear as I think people want to make it or envision it, but at the crux of it is something you already spoke to, and that's data. And here we are, what I think at an inflection point, or even at a point of existential probability for many businesses that are not taking care of the data they have today. And you come at it from a different angle, which is what's going to make some of our conversations very interesting with our different perspectives. But it's about customer data platforms, enterprise customer data platforms, and I think what you and I plan to discuss, maybe discover and uncover, in terms of the value that some companies purport to bring to the automotive industry and others.
Yep, that's for sure.
And they're falling short, or they're just not delivering. And those that are doing just the opposite, those that are actually making a difference, and actually helping companies not only leverage their data, but move into what is this next phase of AI. Both, I'd say both, but it's a probably a three or four things that it does. Is it's not just what people think about in terms of Chat GPT or Claude, but it is open source AI that comes in and it's securely training on your data and operating with your data. It is more not just agentic use of public models or even open source models, but AI agents, which can come in and do things for you to help you build reports, to help you execute certain operations. Looking at that, and then what's the future of software as a service? I think that's a question that you and I are probably going to ponder quite often, because when you start to get into AI, agents and big data platforms that thrive on machine learning, you can honestly see that a lot of the software as a service that's on the market, not just in automotive, but specifically in automotive as we discuss it, I don't know that it has quite the future that a lot of people think it does.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting, you said, inflection point. It really is. You used a lot of big words right there, a lot of words that I've been only learning over the last year or so, but I'm afraid a lot of those words within automotive specifically are still pretty foreign.
Sure.
And I think even though the conversation you've taught me so much over the last year, and I think that's why this conversation makes so much sense. It's how do we take those big ideas and make them meaningful, right, to the dealer world, essentially? Because as sophisticated as we want to think we are in automotive marketing, and I include myself in that space, it has been made incredibly overly complicated. We have created a Frankenstein of platforms, of data points, of customer journeys, and we're now dealing with that Frankenstein, and we can't control it. And I think we're at a point where we almost have to just say, we got to start over again. We got to rethink what we've been thinking the last 10, 15 plus years. And it's not just even in marketing of everything that you're talking about, to the platforms, to how we think about going to market, to thinking of, we don't necessarily need 10 or 12 or 15 different software packages to make a dealership run, right?
Right.
It might be 4 or 5, and you add in a lot of the AI components and the agents that you've been talking about, or just better infrastructure and architecture of those simple platforms. They can do a lot more than they're being able to do, or they're being utilized today.
That's right.
One of my favorite, I almost every dealer group that I talk to has some version of a CDP. They call it a CDP, and it could be any of the automotive CDPs that we know, and a couple of the other CDPs that are out there. None of them are organized or architected or utilizing the capabilities within the CDP itself. Right?
That's
Most of them are just kind of glorified email deployment. Maybe there's a little marketing automation in there that's responding or retargeting in some way. But there's, even where we are today, living in the world where we are today, if we could fix a couple of small things, which are doable,
right,
then the existing architecture could take us so much further. But I think we're at a point where, hey, why go down that path again and just relearn the things we've already learned and aren't doing? There's an opportunity here to kind of let's just step over the mess that we've made and do it right from the first time, and like take the step. And I think that's one of the best parts about Brain Trust, and what you've kind of brought to this conversation is, I bring the data and like maybe even the marketing strategy and like how to go to market and how to think about the customer. But at the end of the day, you got to put it all together. And you have to have that kind of that knowledge base, the consulting, the programmers, all that piece, and that's where you bring the game in spades. And I think that's been a great part of our partnership over the last year or more. Is just learning from each other to figure out, how do you get this done, and how do you do it the right way for the dealer?
That's right. That's right. I mean, we at Brain Trust, the roster looks like it's data engineers, software developers, data scientists, some professional services folks that they know strategic thinking, they know how to talk about use cases, workflows, and better than that, how to look at the outcome first, the desired outcome. To the point you made, right? What is the definition of insanity? Is just having the same outcome every time you do something and you keep on doing what you're doing, right? And that outcome can be status quo sales, right? Revenue coming in, absolutely. But it can also be that, hey, we've got problems, we've got issues, we have incorrect information that we always have to go back and address and correct. That we have team members who don't have access to certain information. Therefore, they just naturally, unintendedly make bad decisions.
I think that's the best point right there, is that in this podcast or in this conversation, it sounds so strange to say it's a podcast, but in this conversation, bringing in other people that have gone through this or have even incurred the problems of going through how to recreate that dealer experience.
Right.
That's going to be, and I know we've been talking about all sorts of different people that can be part of this conversation that we can interview, that it can bring just a wealth of knowledge. I always say, like, there's the same 5 people talking about this all the time, and if we can't relate to that exact situation, or if that dealer that's listening to this is like, hey, well, I only have 4 stores, I don't have 25 stores, right? I'm like, not the same. I think where we really need to be is like, how do we think through this properly and not believe the hype, or not believe everyone that's sponsored out there that's paying 25 grand to be at a conference or something like that. What we need to really say is, like, how do you do it? At the end of the day, how do I get better and use the resources that I have without breaking the bank? And I think that's the perfect conversation, being able to bring in some of those leaders that are starting to go down the path and are working with some vendors and are getting feedback that, hey, this works, this doesn't work. I think that's the best thing that we can have in this conversation.
No, I think so too. I mean, I think that sums up exactly what you and I are on a quest to do. Is number one, we're not saying we know everything. We're not saying that we. I know I don't. I mean,
in fact, we're saying we don't know everything. But the point is that we're willing to learn and listen and kind of like take the steps together with it.
That's right, and to be able to report back, right, in terms of liner notes after a conversation, the transcription itself. Some of the stories we're going to be able to tell when we speak at events or when we meet people at events. I mean, this is what the opportunity really is in an industry where there are very natural, very human things where people in the car business have been reluctant or flat out have pushed back on the notion that technology anywhere else in the world could do anything for the auto industry. And that's one thing that I know I'm challenging. I know I challenge that already. And my clients are challenging that. My clients are not only challenging it, but they're proving the point that there's better technology in the world than a lot of what the auto industry has to offer. There's the second part of that, which is the readiness for the retail auto, industry, the dealer principal, the folks that are on the show floor, that are at the tech desk, that are setting appointments, that are in the bays doing the work. They're back at that inflection point that we can keep talking about. That
inflection point was like 7 or 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. We just didn't pay attention to it. We blew right past it and said, hey, everybody else in the world is changing, but the auto industry will just keep doing the same thing.
Well, and then you have some people talking about Salesforce and HubSpot, which are fantastic platforms, right? Great CRM, great marketing automation, additives to a stack of technology. However, I want to point the finger at Salesforce for just 1 second, right? To what you just said about 7, 8 years ago. 10 years ago, I was working in the Bay Area with a software company. And as the head of marketing, it was my job to generate marketing qualified leads with automation, with marketing automation, lots of email, lots of social, some event activations, a bunch of other things that would then send a signal to Salesforce and pop in on the view in front of an account executive to give them a lead. And the bigger opportunity here too, I think what we have to talk about here, and the inflection point that I was just talking about, is the AI inflection point. Is that both, if you thought the customer had everything they needed to know about the car they're looking at from Google, wait till you understand that probably 30% of the people on your lot have been talking to Chat GPT and using Perplexity to know way more than Google will tell them, right? And because Google's not optimized to tell them all the same things, right? I mean, that's a current state of media statement right there. Is that kind of things happening? Not only is the speed of business accelerating, is the rate of play on a hockey stick growth in terms of speed and the way things get done, decisions are made, insights are generated, or could be. At the end of the day, we're in a situation where so many people thought they were doing the right things. And it's not just in the automotive industry, but as they were using marketing automation and systems that allowed them to automatically score leads to to bring them into the top of the funnel or the middle of the funnel to then have a human follow up with them. The problem with that is that the salespeople lost their skill. They lost their ability to prospect. They lost, and worse, they lost what was there for the best salespeople in the world, still is today, but there's just not as many of them around, is the ability to build trust, confidence, and a relationship with somebody before you sell to them, right? Or as you sell to them. And allowing technology to come in and negate your responsibility to be human and build empathy. That's what happened with the internet, 15, 17 years, as you said a few minutes ago, 15, 17 years, we've been on this arc, right? And now here, oh my gosh, here all of a sudden is AI, and it's a little more human because it's conversational in most of the way it's deployed right now. It's going to change, of course.
Data and marketing in automotive specifically has been commoditized at a level that is hard to believe, because every dealer essentially does exactly the same thing. They have the same search, they have the same retargeting, they spend the same amount of money, through their certified digital campaign programs. Everything's exactly the same, and there's nothing, essentially unique about what a dealer delivers. I think the conversation that we're going to be having, whether it's AI or CDPs or just first party and third party data, is the ability to bring that back, exactly what you're talking about, bringing the human touch back into this to build the relationships, right? If all you're doing is reacting to a lead or retargeting someone that's on your website that lands there, then you're doing the same thing as 5 or 7 or 10 other website or 5 or 10, 7 or 10 other dealer websites that are receiving the same lead. Because you and I both know that when you go out and buy a car, you don't go to one website.
No.
Doesn't matter how many times you bought from that dealership, you are still shopping around. And we need to be able to figure out, well, how do you make that experience better? Because if all you're doing is the exact same thing as everybody else, you're going to continue to get your 5 or 12% close rate on every lead that comes in, and you're going to let the other 90% of those leads go somewhere else.
That's it.
I think that's what it really comes down to, is like, how do we maximize that and use the architecture and the data and the AI that all exists today? How do you make that work together? Because if you're not, then you might as well just keep doing what you do. You might as well throw away almost everything that you have, because the Rolodex was closing these same exact leads 20 years ago, and you didn't have to have all these crazy vendor partners out there trying to change your life in digital.
That's right.
So if we're going to bring a data solution or a CDP solution or a marketing solution or a CX solution, well, better damn be better than what we were doing 20 years ago. And it's not.
Well, that's
closing more.
Well, Chris, I mean that I wanted to stop you a second ago when you were saying that you when you're doing retargeting, right? When someone goes to Auto Trader and or Cars.com, there's a build and price thing there, and it gets referred to your site, where there's inventory that matches that, right? I mean, that system works. Yes, it does. But are you the only dealer that they're going to land on? You made that point. No, but when you said specifically what another 7 dealers are going to do in the same situation, right? It gets me into this deeper frame of the fact that best practices do not exist. There is no such thing as a way to do digital retailing for automotive, full stop. Here's the playbook, go do it. That does not exist.
It's called the lowest hurdle.
That might have existed 10, 12 years ago. And it certainly existed as we went through these push and pull ebbs and flows of the marketplace with COVID and other things that happened that were heydays, money printing days for dealers. But guess what? That wasn't the technology doing it. That was the market forces doing that. So the proving ground over the last 10 years, maybe 15, 17 years, as we look at this, that proving ground for all of this has been anything but consistent or linear, which means that anybody who tries to give you guidance or a prescription as this is the 3-step process on how you do this, or this is how you set things up for success because it worked for everybody else, the last 10 people we worked with, that's not the way this works. So this is why you and I exist, right?
Yeah.
Because the malleability, right? The custom configuration of, right? If there's not best practices, what is there? There is your ability to bend data, bend AI specific to your business, to your workflows, to the culture that you have within your teams, within your customers, within your inventory, right? The brand often dictates that to a certain degree. And with that, the OEM, is that the OEM or is it the brand? Ooh, there's an interesting conversation. Is it OEM or is it brand? It's brand. But I would argue. But where I'm going with that is every single dealer and a dealer group that has 10 rooftops and they've got 5 different OEMs across those 10 rooftops, bam, not one of those rooftops is going to be exactly the same as the other, right? I mean, it's even that within the same group. So think we're here to challenge the notion that because I'm hearing some dealer groups be very, very pensive on one end, but they're not thinking about it as hard as they make me think they're thinking about it. They just have a judgment in their head that they don't want to invest in enterprise technology for 2 or 3 years.
Well, why would they? They've been burnt so many times on promises that never came, right? On capabilities that didn't exist, and smoke and mirrors that they're once the vendor is already set up, they're figuring out. Like, it's like, come on, let's do it the right way. I think the best part of this conversation, again, is going to be how do we actually walk through the process and take into consideration all the challenges that exist within automotive, and let's bring in those partners that can speak on it. And we're not even saying that those partners are 100% correct, right? That they might be wrong, but I think it's having this kind of group conversation to be able to say, okay, let's lay it out on the table freely and fairly.
Right.
And let's understand what these capabilities are. What are the requirements by the dealer, right? How does the dealer have to own their own data? Or control their data, or who are the partners that they feel comfortable with sharing their data and executing on? Because at the end of the day, these partners are the manifestation of the dealer, right?
Always.
How they're able to communicate out, whether it's a social media campaign or an email or a text message or it's an AI phone solution,
right?
That is the dealer,
right?
That's how the dealer is being presented. So if you can't get that right, why are you there?
That's right. And lastly is something that I may say every time we record this, but it's not about selling cars. It's not. And it didn't used to be about selling cars. It used to be, race on Saturday, or race on Saturday, sell on Sunday, right? Or race on Sunday, sell on Monday. Or sell on Saturday, race on Sunday, whatever it was, right? It has always been about building relationships. It's always been about building trust with somebody who's not just going to buy one vehicle from you. They may buy 2, but better than that, anything they do with that vehicle, whether that's repairs, maintenance, oil changes, aftermarket accoutrement that you want to add. I like to talk about curb feelers and hubcaps, right? The vehicle is a part of someone's identity. It's part of a family's identity, and if you don't respect that, on top of the fact that you convince somebody to spend these days north of $45,000 on an asset that depreciates at least 8 to 13% the minute it's driven off the lot, and they financed it with you. They're paying more than what you priced it at to own it as it loses its value, and they love it, and they spend another $500 a year on car washes and hand wax jobs. And, you're not respecting these people because you've over automated everything, and you've only seen that the top of the funnel selling cars is what you're supposed to do. That's not wrong, because the more cars you sell, the more that you're going to get into that fixed absorption calculation. But that fixed absorption calculation is totally dependent on your ability to have trust and confidence with your customers, that they come to you for every little thing and every big thing that happens with their vehicle. And the better part of that is if they have a badass customer experience every time that they do something with their vehicle, then the trust is built even more. It amasses, and there's a good chance that when their daughter turns 16, they're going to walk them in to buy a used car from you, or maybe even a new car. But
I'm in the process of buying a used car right now for my son.
There you
go. Back from college.
So it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And again, it's 2025, and I'm visiting me in the dealer, in the automotive world. I work directly with OEMs. I get friends and family pricing. I get all that. But I'm still looking at, hey, what's the price on this car? I'm not giving away $10 or $15 a month in a price.
Right.
That's not happening. Right. So I think as we kind of evolve this conversation, is like, how do we work with the dealer groups, the OEMs, the vendor partners that are bringing these solutions, and just create something better and create something that's doable and repeatable?
Yes.
Because right now it's a mess, and we need voices like yours and I, hopefully over this time, and the people that we bring into the conversation to help us navigate that path. Because again, if we only just listen to the sponsored voices at the conference every other month, then all we're going to get is the same 5 voices again. And we need to have a little more complexity to the conversation, instead of everybody looking at the same dealer group or the same person and saying, yes, we got to do it exactly this way.
That's right. Well, I mean, I think what everybody needs to know is that you and I, we have spirited rants all the time, and we don't always agree, which is beautiful. But we're excited to bring other people into this, vendors, dealers. I don't want to call them thought leaders, but people that are out there that are doing the work.
People that are doing
the work,
right?
Doing the work. People
and being successful as much as we can.
And being successful, and or being transparent on what's not working for them, right? I mean, this is a safe place. And by all means, we want to make it to where everyone can talk about what's real and what's not in terms of the current state of the automotive business, and where appropriate, where that plugs into everything else. Because there's so much we're talking about here, I think, that leaves more to discuss around customer experiences. I try to get there with trust, but it's deeper than that in terms of how you're getting people that have bought from you or got service from you to go back and tell all their friends that they trust you and that they would do it again. And these are the things that I think are going to be fascinating to discuss, because the world is changing as fast as it is, right? There's going to be no shortage of people out there that are experimenting or more investing in technology that they believe was going to work for them. And our hope is that we find a whole lot of it that is working. But we're also here to discuss that which just doesn't perform, that which isn't helping you get control of your expenses and helping you grow revenue quarter over quarter.
Have that conversation honestly.
That's right. It just have an earnest and honest, as transparent as you want to be, I think is the thing there. We're not saying you have to tell us everything, but we're looking for people that are looking that would like to join us and get in these conversations. Looking for vendors, looking for dealers, looking for other people that are in the business that know the business, people that have been there for 2 years or been there for 20 years, that are part of all this change. Let's get out there and let's get in here, and y'all come from out there. Let's get in here and let's talk about it.
I'm excited about it, Tim. I'll tell you, we've been talking about this since NADA, I guess. which is, wow, that's like 4 or 5 months ago at this point. But I'm so glad that we're able to kind of start this conversation going. And, if this is a podcast, I guess I'm on my first podcast. But I think what we're really trying to do is bring some open conversation to this. And I think we're going to solve some problems and probably cause some problems along the way. But I think that's the nature of the beast that we want to have here, because you're not going to get forward if we're keep doing the same thing.
Well, when it comes to telling the truth, it's not a success until somebody calls the cops. I mean, that's
it's all fun and games until someone loses an eye. And
that's
then it's
right.
Just fun.
We need the neighbors to tell us that the music's too loud, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's what this is about, and it's going to be exciting. Does it have to be all hell raising and fireworks every single time? No, it's not. And what I mean by that is super negative, critical views.
We don't want to have almost any of that conversation.
No, we want to talk about what's working or what people are looking at right now, what they're interested in, and talk through things and see if we can't get more and more folks to understand, what's plausible, not just what's possible, but what's plausible for process improvement, revenue improvement, cost control, all these things, right?
And the truth is, it's not that hard. It really isn't. You can make some pretty significant improvements, probably with some small changes, probably using a lot of the platforms that you already have.
That's right.
It's like, let's do it better, put it together, make sure you have the right partners in there that are all rowing in the same direction. And, we're going to bring a little bit of that conversation, a little intelligence, a little bit of new vendor thoughts and new technologies into it. But I think at the end of the day, it's like, we're not recreating the wheel. We're just doing it differently and better and more thoughtfully, instead of always just like adding another organic platform onto the side that does this one other thing, even though that your CDP that you already have probably already does that.
Correct. Right. I mean, that's the thing, is how much redundancy exists, how much and how much is ignored, right? How much is just simply ignored, or again, not acceptable to you because of your belief system, right? Because of your beliefs. I mean, that's talk about disinformation, talk about misinformation. There's a whole lot of it, both in terms of what technology can do or what it can do right now. And we're here, I hope, to, as best as we can, set the record straight and understand the other side of technology in terms of business, in terms of customer happiness, employee happiness, and the business performance.
And I think we can promise in podcast 10 or 15 that we're going to get to the conversation about eliminating most of these platforms and then moving to a more evolved architecture anyhow. But we'll worry about that 9 or 14 podcasts from now.
It won't even take that long, but yes, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Yep.
Well, I look forward to it, my friend.
You bet. We don't have a name for this podcast yet, but we will by the time the first show drops. So it's been fun doing this little primer.
Intro.
Yeah, just a little primer for us to talk about what it is we're going to discuss and the kinds of things we're going to discuss, I think is a better way to frame it. And I'm looking forward to it.
Amen. Me too. Thank you, sir.
You bet, bud.
Appreciate it.